Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content, of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries with over 45% of authentic and credible local content.
Well, a very good evening to you, and thank you for choosing Newswatch right here at Hope TV. I do hope you had a fantastic day. Tonight being the 12th day of September 2024, a lot more has been happening right here in the country and beyond. Well, we shall also be having our day's conversation revolving on matters to do with environmental conservation. What are some of the efforts you as an individual can put forth and as corporate to make sure that we do have a habitable environment to coexist peacefully. My name is Sammy Adika, and our sign language interpreter is Boniface Mureithi. But starting us off with matters to do with politics. Following the political rift within Mount Kenya region, a group of members of parliament from the region have ganged and rallied their support on Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki as their chief coordinator in Mount Kenya affairs. The legislators led by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Finance Committee Chairperson Kuria Kimani say that following the prevailing state of affairs and urgency of the mission ahead, there is need to have a link that will create a nexus between them and the national executive on matters development. This endorsement sets the stage for a potential political clash between CS Kithure Kindiki and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua on the control of the central region politics. And as Alice Diana tells us, the new plot joins a group of 20 others from Mount Kenya East who named Kindiki as their key representative to the national executive on Monday.
As the battle for the control of the Mount Kenya region gathers momentum, 48 members of parliament from the Mount Kenya region and the diaspora have broken ranks with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and declared their allegiance to Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, saying he is now their link to President William Ruto. In their joint statement presented by Larry MP Mburu Kahangara after holding a consultative meeting in Nyahururu, the legislators announced that they have unanimously endorsed Professor Kindiki as their leader to foresee that the region's development agendas are achieved.
Given the prevailing state of affairs and the urgency of the mission ahead, there is need to have a link that will create a nexus between us and the national executives on matters development. Accordingly, we as elected leaders from this region and its diaspora, on our own behalf and that of our people, unanimously resolve that our link to the national government to be the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration Professor Kithure Kindiki,
led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, Finance Committee Chairperson Kuria Kimani, and Nyandarua Woman Representative Faith Gitau, the leaders observed that despite a well-outlined development agenda that came with the Kenya Kwanza government, realization of such meaningful agendas 2 years on, the region has lacked proper coordination in achieving these goals and hence the need to review leadership.
Unfortunately, our effort to consolidate the development needs of the people we represent and canvass for their realization has been frustrated by the lack of a focal point of reference around whom we can channel the interests and priorities of our people, the government, for actualization.
They rejected the DP leadership, saying he has failed the region and instead focused on selfish political gains.
Instead, the Mount Kenya region has suffered high-octane politics around the fathom unity to support individual and personal ambition rather than the actualization, pursuit and lobbying of the interests of the constituents. Our attempts to call the region to the orderly prioritization of the development needs of the people has been frustrated by condescending threats of dire political consequences unless we support certain personal interests and ambitions. Yet, time is of the essence given that we are already under 3 years to the end of the first term of this administration.
The declaration comes barely 4 days after their Mount Kenya East counterparts endorsed Kindiki as their leader and linked with the executive arm of government. Alice Diana, Hope TV Newswatch.
Well, many thanks, Alice Diana, for that specific report. Away from matters politics, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has cautioned Kenyans against spreading fake news on the Hillside Endarasha tragedy. Speaking in Nyeri, CS disclosed that spotted a section of Kenyans sharing false number of those affected by the fire incident. Kindiki further noted that investigations are still ongoing and urged Kenyans to exercise patience, even as security agencies heightened their efforts to unravel the cause of the tragedy that claimed the lives of 21 pupils.
Being of our children, and we have therefore mobilized all the human, financial, and whatever other resources that are required to make sure that, one, we account for every child who was in the school that fateful morning, that fateful night. Secondly, to ensure thorough and deliberate investigations are done conclusively to establish what exactly caused the fire that brought us the death of so many of our young children. As I said on Friday afternoon, the government has nothing to hide, and we will do whatever it takes to come to the truth and nothing but the truth. We must know what happened. Some progress has been made. I don't want to preempt the progress which has been made because the relevant agencies will be communicating that progress. The DCI is in charge of the scene of crime, and they have been doing a good job.
And President William Ruto has launched the National Climate Resilience Program, which aims to create job opportunities for 200,000 youth countrywide involved in environmental projects in their communities. Also known as Climate Works Mtaani, the initiative seeks to enhance the livability of Kenyan cities through the greening of urban spaces and cleaning and rejuvenating of rivers around them. As Tess Njega reports, Climate Works further aims to eliminate illegal dumping of solid waste and discharge of effluent in urban areas and make communities resilient to adverse effects of climate change.
A walk alongside Nairobi River reveals a sorry state of affairs. The stench, massive pollution, and dirty water greets the eyes of the beholder in a place right in the capital city. However, there is a ray of hope as President William Ruto has launched the National Climate Resilience Program, also known as Climate Works Mtaani, accompanied by Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja and partners in the Climate Works project. Speaking in Korogocho when he launched the program along the heavily polluted Nairobi River, the president said that Climate Works is a powerful, incisive and transformative intervention aimed at achieving ecological restoration while maintaining public infrastructure and housing through labor-intensive and sustainable public works.
Today, the Nairobi River behind me here, which is clean and fresh at its source, is polluted, darkened, and foul-smelling, poisoned with industrial effluent, untreated sewage, and plastic waste. As I make that statement, you can see what I am saying in our background. All around it, the damaging effects of environmental degradation are evident. These issues undermine the livability of communities housing hundreds of thousands of people and pose serious threats to health and quality of life.
The president has said that the first phase of Climate Works in Nairobi County will officially begin on October 1st, 2024, with 20,000 youth being onboarded. This will complement and expand the efforts of Comp Green Youth, an environmental conservation group in partnership with the National Environment Management Authority NEMA to clean up the Nairobi River.
We will extend the program to the 4 major cities, Kisumu, Mombasa, Eldoret, and Nakuru, within 1 month. An additional 40,000 youth will be engaged, with 10,000 of them allocated to other areas of Nairobi starting in early November. In December, we will roll out Climate Works across all remaining counties, onboarding 140,000 youth to ensure full national participation and full national impact.
The head of state has assured that the Climate Works opportunities will be given to all Kenyans equally without any preferences.
Our vision for Climate Works is to activate talent and capability in community service, entrepreneurship, employment, and further education. Climate Works will be a platform where diverse skills and competencies are applied to climate action and community transformation.
The president directed responsible agencies to fully enforce waste management laws without exception to protect the environment. He invited the private sector and development partners to partner with the government to make the project a success.
If you are going to be polluting the river, you must prepare to make sure that you are held to account and you pay for it, so that we can keep the river clean and everybody becomes responsible for their behavior.
At the same time, the president said the government will provide 40,000 social housing units to persons who are displaced from riparian areas by the El Nino rains, for which they will pay only 3,000 shillings in monthly rent. Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Tess Njenga.
Well, many thanks, Tess Njenga, for that specific report. Now remember, our day's conversation is all about environmental conservation. Some of the efforts you and I can put forth to make sure that we make the environment habitable for peaceful coexistence. And joining me tonight is Joe Kithiaka, who will be helping us understand what are some of the efforts we can put forth. And just good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me too.
Yes, we do understand. A quick one just before we delve into issues that we shall be discussing tonight. We do have President William Ruto. We've seen him today trying to put forth some of the efforts that his government is going to put in place to make sure that Nairobi River goes back to its original state, and even better. It has been an initiative that has been carried all through by different governments. Now here he comes, and he has promised that within 1 year there shall be change from where you sit and as an environmentalist. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a very exciting move by the president today to have Nairobi River actually rehabilitated. But I just hope it is a permanent solution to this, because if you look back during Kibaki's time, we had Michuki, the late Michuki was one of the people who started cleaning up the Nairobi River.
Yes.
And also had the Michuki Park cleaned up the time in Globe Cinema, the time he fixed it up.
Yes.
Then we had Mutula Kilonzo, who also before his demise, and also when he was minister,
Yes.
also did the same when he was Nairobi Metropolitan Minister.
Yes.
He tried to clean up the river, and he even said that by the time it will be done, he will swim across and get out on the other side.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't know whether he ended up swimming in it.
Yes.
But later, then we got the place back to the mess that it had. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that we have to come back so many years later to realize that a lot of things that are happening in Nairobi to do with water and health issues are actually as a result of that river. Yeah. And so I hope now with this new move of these young guys, these 20,000 environmental soldiers, that they will not only just clean it, but we also need to have an enforcement team that will be able to arrest anyone who's polluting the environment, especially littering around town, because when the rain comes, those are the things that end up in the rivers, and also to control the number of factories along the river that actually throw most of their waste into the river.
Yes.
Not that we don't know, I think it's a known issue who are these, but because of the corruption issue and also the problem of non-enforcement of NEMA,
yes,
we end up having to ignore some of these things. And I hope this time it's for real. Yeah.
We also do understand that President William Ruto has been on the forefront in making sure, or rather championing for climate change and basically efforts that will make Kenya stand out in Africa. We've seen him on international platforms, and he's actually managed to make bold moves. Right now he's heading to Germany this night. We do understand that some of the issues he'll be tackling with on is just a bilateral engagement with the German government and President Frank Walter. One of the issues he'll be talking about is climate change and all that. Do you think we are on the right track in terms of climate change efforts of combating climate change?
In Africa, I think we could be on the right track in terms of visibility. Mm-hmm. But in terms of implementation is where I think we are still lagging behind. Mm-hmm. Because I think in the last 2-3 years, we've had good presence when we had the conference, the climate change conference, which was in Kenya. Mm-hmm. That was a good eye-opener for the world that we are ready and we are on the forefront. Mm-hmm. We also have the presence of the headquarters of the UNEP in this country. Yes. We should be even further into more environment issues than other countries. Mm-hmm. We also had COP. We really participated in COP in Dubai the other day, and now there's this German summit. Mm-hmm. What I really don't understand is that we go out there with a lot of impact and a lot of proposals and get a lot of support, but back home we don't have well implemented policies, and that's why I think we're having a problem. So some of these things we're experiencing, like the last year we experienced a bad flood, which actually destroyed many parts of this country. I think if we had started these things as early as we started planning to go and do the international awareness, I think some of these things would have been avoided. So for me, I feel they are good moves, but I just hope whatever we get, we actually come back and make it utilized in the best way possible.
Yes. You've talked about policies, and that takes me back to when we were young. We used to talk about cut one tree, plant two. It has been a policy that President Moi himself, the former president and late president, he really championed for that. You cut one tree, you plant two. Is it practical right now? Can we really achieve such? It's about...
I think for me, when I look back, because I remember the time the late President Moi was alive, when he was with those policies, I was also within an area of life that I could have been able to understand what he was trying to do. Yes. I think it was a very good idea. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, for a very long time, the Ministry of Environment has been taken as a back burner kind of ministry. Yeah. So it's only one when in other governments I saw that whenever you did badly in another ministry and didn't look like you're performing, you were thrown to the Ministry of Environment. It was looking like a punishment ministry. And so some of these ministers, when they got there, they didn't work with a lot of zeal, or they didn't understand what environment was. Yeah. Now it's a main discussion in the world, especially when it comes to IT and environment. Those are the main discussions that are on the table. Yes. And I think what we need to do is to get the best ministers to run these ministries. Because when you look at the environmental area of the country or the world in general, it affects every other department or every other ministry. So without a good environment, then we don't have good water, we don't have good health, and all these things come also around climate change. But for me, I think it's a good idea, it can be implemented, but there are many other initiatives that have also come after that.
Yes. But
this follow through and the reinforcement of some of these things is, I think, where the problem comes. Because in a village like where I come from, charcoal burning is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And being a lifestyle, you'll find that by the time you convince those people that don't cut trees, the next question they'll ask you, then what do I eat?
Yeah.
So when you tell them, okay, fine, there are other ways of alternative ways of looking for a meal, they go to sand harvesting. And when you tell them don't clear the sand because the sand will affect your water,
yes,
then the next question is, what do I eat?
Yeah.
So I think there are many other policies that need to come around those areas. So when you're stopping this, you're giving people alternatives on how to be able to survive. Because this world is more of survival than actually living. Yeah.
An interesting one. You just remember that President William Ruto has been talking about the alternative ways, but he's also fronted an idea of why don't we plant 10 billion trees within 10 years, which was actually moved to 15 billion trees in 10 years. What's the practicability of 15 billion trees in 10 years? Is it achievable? Taking a look at some of the strides we've made. Last year, we saw every cabinet secretary moving around the country trying to make sure that we plant trees. But then at the same time, we also have the issue to do with logging. The court stops. The other time, you see people move forward to actually oppose such a move. They still want to continue with logging. What is basically the advantage? Or rather, will we really achieve the 15 billion trees in 10 years? Remember, 10 years is almost.
Okay, I think the figure that was 10 billion, 15 billion was a very attractive figure in terms of fundraising.
Yes.
And also in terms of showing the seriousness of the government to be able to plant more trees. But the practicability of 15 billion trees being planted in this country, I think if you look at the square area of how many trees you can be able to have in an acre or 2 acres or 3 acres, practically 15 billion trees may be off because we are already cutting a lot of trees to bring real estate construction.
Yes.
So as urbanization comes in, you find it harder for people to maintain the forests. So it may not be achievable in terms of 15 billion in 10 years, but it could get there. But if the move becomes well coordinated, because for instance, we see a lot of knee-jerk kind of operations where they say tomorrow people will start planting trees, next month people will start planting trees, and there are all these big functions going on. But when you go back and see how the survival rate of those trees, what we have been doing for a long time is planting trees,
yes,
not growing trees. So then it comes to the other factor, what actually other factors affect the growing or the growing of trees. One other factor is rainfall. Our rainfalls are very erratic. So when you have erratic rainfall, it tells you that one thing that you'll have a danger of is you have to plant during the seasons of rain.
Yes.
But for me, where I sit, I always talk about one thing called water harvesting. If you look at the kind of water that comes down from Ngong Hills down to Karen, Langata Road to Nyayo Stadium, for flooding to happen around Nyayo Stadium, there's so much public land that if we had a policy and we said that every public land would put underground tanks and build Ulinzi Stadium on top of the tanks and have all that coming down from schools, there are schools on that school, there are public areas, we'll have enough water underground which can be used to irrigate our trees during off seasons.
Yes.
And not only in Nairobi, even in the upcountry places, we have schools that we can actually use. Those have their pitches, school pitches, on top of underground tanks and use that during water. Because our danger is water. The other one is also protecting the trees against herders and animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we shall be back with that specific conversation. That there is Joe Kithiaka, the chairman of Plant Your Age, trying to help us understand what are some of the efforts you as an individual or corporate can put forth in making sure that we do have a good and habitable environment right here in the country. And we shall also be delving into matters to do with what are some of the events they have planned for this year and some of their efforts in making sure that we move forward as a more better country. Away from that now, Kenya has officially launched the 5th National Action Plan on Open Government Partnership that reaffirms the government's commitment to fostering a transparent, accountable and citizen-centered government. The launch outlines the government's strategy to strengthen public participation, enhance governance and improve service delivery. The new plan also focuses on creating a more open government in collaborations with various partners.
We did agree that public participation is not a sterile provision of the Constitution. It must amount to something. And it is the reason why we've been grappling as a nation, how do we actualize public participation? We have now working on legislation, as you've heard. In a couple of months, we should now have a framework that contextualizes, creates a framework for citizens to meaningfully participate in enacting policy, enacting legislation, and every act of government that requires the public to participate in. That is number one. Number two, we have now work at the Attorney General's office, and I want to ask the civil society who are present here to work with the Attorney General as we improve 3 pieces of legislation. Number one, improve legislation on Evidence Act so that we can deal with matters corruption in the shortest time possible. Improve legislation on e-procurement and make government procurement open, including making sure that it is in the public domain which contracts have been awarded, for how much money, to which companies. And so that the public can judge for themselves whether they are getting value for money or they are being taken for a ride.
Now, the International Commission of Jurists, Kenya section, and the Unwanted Witness of Uganda has kicked off discussions on legal discourse towards data protection and privacy within electoral processes. The annual inter-university competition organized by Unwanted Witness took place at Daystar University Nairobi campus and saw stakeholders highlighting the need to upholding voter privacy to enhance or rather ensure legitimacy and fairness of elections.
I'm hoping that as I finish this...
The annual inter-university event organized by Unwanted Witness brought together stakeholders from the East Africa Law Society of Kenya, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner to highlight the importance of technology in conducting elections under this year's theme of safeguarding electoral integrity, upholding voter privacy in democratic processes.
For us as ICJ Kenya, having watched elections for the last, give or take 10-15 years, we have seen that elections are slowly becoming very technology heavy. And as such, we want to invest a lot of content, a lot of information on how elections and technology work together. So for this particular moot conference, they will be looking at how voter privacy is important during an election process to ensure that it's upheld in terms of a democratic system.
The election management bodies have been urged to ensure that personal data collected for election purpose are safeguarded to avoid mismanagement that would affect democracy.
You have privacy safeguards in election management laws, then you are guaranteed to have a good process that will uphold democracy. So the conversation here today and going forward for the mooters is going to be about upholding that important aspect of privacy. Because privacy is like chapati and tea. You ought to take them, hand in hand. You can't take one at a go.
According to Hosea Manwa, General Membership Representative at the Law Society of Kenya, the initiative goes a long way to establish solutions to electoral issues that Kenya has been facing during every electioneering year.
You understand the two countries are experiencing election disputes every time there's an election cycle. The last 2 years, in 2022, Kenya had similar issues. We had data breaches to the members of the public. You will find text messages sent to you by people you don't even know, you've never interacted with. it's a clear indication that your data is being used by the government and is handed over to third parties without your consent, and there are consequences to that.
The event also seeks to champion for inclusion of privacy safeguards within the law that will govern the mandate and role of electoral bodies within East Africa.
We need to include privacy safeguards to inspire different entities in the election management process to understand their role and responsibilities as far as handling personal data is concerned, and how do they comply and what are their mandates.
For Newswatch, I'm Sammy, Adika.
So before we go into the keynote.
Well, now on matters trade. Now, in a bold move aimed at revitalizing the trade sector, the government has unveiled significant reforms to enhance both domestic and foreign trade. Addressing the press in Nairobi, Trade Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya emphasized that these reforms, which include measures on consumer protection and combating counterfeit products, are crucial for stimulating economic growth across the nation. And as Grace Ahati reports, the ministry has thus called for public participation, encouraging stakeholders to submit their proposals regarding the planned changes by September 27, 2024.
In a bid to spur economic growth in the country, the government has unveiled a series of significant reforms aimed at enhancing the trade sector, particularly focusing on manufacturing and investment. Trade Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya has noted that in the last 10 years, the manufacturing sector's contribution to the nation's gross domestic product (GDP) has declined from 15 to 7.6% due to challenges which include an unpredictable taxation regime. Addressing the press in Nairobi, Mvurya has noted that among the reforms the government aims to improve export performance, promote structured commodity trading, and reduce domestic trade costs.
Looking at key measures that will attract, incentivize and de-risk private investments in all sectors of the economy, rationalize incentives to boost manufacturing, and also look at measures that will improve consumer protection and fair trade, measures to improve the performance of the export sector in all its facets, which include trade, services, domestic, and most of the areas that relate to the export sector.
Recognizing the role of public participation in policy-making processes, CS Mvurya has now called upon relevant stakeholders to submit their proposals on the reforms to inform their formulation.
And we will do this public participation process, inviting our key stakeholders for physical meetings, but also allow them to participate online and other forms. And we want to do this up to 27th of September, so that then we are able to receive critical input that will be very specific on how we can rejuvenate and inspire the manufacturing sector.
The proposed reforms have been welcomed by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance KEPSA, which described them as timely interventions necessary for alleviating the burdens faced by businesses in the country.
This is a process that is quite timely because we have an ailing private sector, one that is heavily burdened by the regulatory framework, and an in-depth review of this exercise is certainly something that we need to be able to revamp our private sector.
Reporting for Hope TV Newswatch, I'm Grace Ahati.
Well, many thanks, Grace Ahati, for that specific report. Now, away from that, President William Ruto is set to depart for Germany today for an official visit that will see him witness the signing of a bilateral labor agreement ending months of negotiations between the two nations. Kenya and Germany initiated the talks aimed at fostering labor mobility in March this year. Now, this will be the third time President William Ruto is visiting the country, with his last tour being in November last year. Speaking earlier in the day, State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed noted that President William Ruto will engage in several high-profile meetings meetings set to yield immediate benefits for Kenyans.
President William Ruto will leave the country this evening for a two-day official visit to the Federal Republic of Germany. Now, this visit marks a significant milestone in the long-standing relations between Kenya and Germany, spanning over 60 years, and is aimed at strengthening cultural, economic, and diplomatic ties. Now, during his visit, President Ruto will engage in several high-profile activities expected to yield real, tangible, and immediate benefits to the people of Kenya. The key engagements while on his official visits are as follows. Number one, he'll witness or preside over the signing of the Kenya-Germany Agreement on Comprehensive Migration and Mobility Partnership. Now, this will be a key highlight of the visit. The signing of this important agreement establishes a framework for cooperation on labor mobility, apprenticeships, student training, employment, and the welfare of employees, as well as for the readmission and return of citizens. He will also participate at the annual Citizens Festival, also known as Baggerfest. The President will attend and address this year's prestigious Citizens Festival, themed Pamoja, Stronger Together. Kenya has been honored as the profile partner country, making it the first time a non-European country has been selected to partner with Germany for the festival. This partnership offers a unique platform to showcase Kenya's rich cultural heritage to the German Republic, or the German public rather. Cultural exchange has been the cornerstone of our connection, with institutions like the Gotha Institute in Nairobi playing a crucial role in promoting German culture in Kenya since 1963. President Ruto will also hold bilateral discussions with his host, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, as well as the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. These meetings will focus on deepening cooperation on areas of mutual interest, including green energy and climate action, digital cooperation, trade and investment, skills development and labor, and regional and international peace and security.
Well, many things right there. We do expect to see what President William Ruto will be handling in Germany in the course of the day tomorrow. Now, remember, we are having a discussion on matters environmental conservation. Do get in touch with us through our socials at Hope TV Kenya and at Sammy Adika. What are your thoughts on what our guest tonight, Joe Kithiaka, the chairman, Plant Your Edge, is helping us understand, and what are some of the efforts that you can put to conserve the environment in whatever space you are in. Now, before we went for a break, Joe, you did help us, or rather you did pinpoint the issue to do with urbanization. And an interesting bit about it all, you said that real estate developing is becoming a challenge in matters to do with planting more trees. And Nairobi specifically is more like a concrete jungle. What are some of the efforts that these specific real estate developers can put forth, or rather in their plans, to make sure that they don't just erect the skyrocket apartments, but also help to still plant trees and conserve the environment within their spaces?
As I mentioned it to you earlier, I think the biggest problem we're having in the environmental space is the reinforcement of the laws. In every construction, be it a road construction, be it a real estate construction, rail construction, there's always a pre-feasibility study, an environmental impact study. And the environmental impact study, one of the things that gives an approval is when you say, what will you do with the environment after you've already done what you've done? So one of the things people do, I think what needs to be enforced is that every time there's such a construction, these developers should be enforced to be able to plant trees around their projects, or even around the highways. But like one very interesting thing is when you look at the SGR, if you travel on the SGR to Mombasa, I think 2/3 of it is just hot, simply because there's no tree plantations on the side of the railway. Same with even highways. You go towards Namanga, you just find it's just a desert of just a very good road, but very, very, very dry without trees. That's why I'm saying that there should be enforcement that any time you do a construction, there's X amount of trees that you have to build within that acreage of the constructions you're doing or any development you're doing. So the reinforcement of that is where I think the problem is. Secondly, is also what I said earlier, is maybe the biggest problem we may have is how to maintain the trees. You can grow the trees, but you may not be able to maintain them. So water is one of the things that we need to look at. How best can we be able to irrigate trees so that we don't just wait for the rains.
Yes.
We can irrigate them as the year goes by. So those are the things that I look at, and I say that we just need to have a serious reinforcement. One, from the judiciary. The judiciary, they have a wing now, they've always had a wing of environmental wing, but I think the judges need to be more serious about environmental issues so that they can be able to arraign people in court, get them to actually act against against what they have done wrong. That's one. Two, we also need to have even a police unit, like how we have the tourism unit for police. We need a police unit for environment, which will actually be able to immediately arrest anyone who's going against anything to do with the environmental laws. And also the bylaws of the towns, like the city bylaws. Dustbins in every estate, dustbins on the highways, all these things should need to be reinforced. The time those are law that every bus or every matatu should have a dustbin.
Yes.
But you'll find in a matatu, you're following a matatu, and all these people do, they eat their cob of maize and throw out of the window. And you wonder, where are we? What is it? A society that is gone rot, or is it the laws that are not being reinforced? So those are things that we need to balance for us to get a better environment.
Yes. And now on to the main reason as to why you are here today. We do understand that you are the chairman of Plant Your Age. Tell us a little bit about that and what brought about the idea of Plant Your Age.
All right. Let me just start with the introduction of what Plant Your Age, where it came from. Plant Your Age is a subsidiary or a social entity or initiative under the Green Africa Foundation. And why it was founded is that when Wangari Maathai passed on, which was in 2011, our patron, Dr. Isaac Alua Green, appealed to the country for people to plant their age. And we started by planting Wangari Maathai's corner, where we planted trees equivalent to her age. And in the next year, the late then president, Mwai Kibaki, also came to Kitui and also planted his age in Kitui. And we also have a Kitui, Kibaki's corner in Kitui at the Green Africa Center. Then after that, we started doing an annual tree planting activity on the 14th of September every year. And so far, we've been to almost 14 counties. We've been to Homa Bay. We've been to Kajiado twice. We've been to Machakos twice. We've been to Makueni once. We've been to Kiambu. This is the second one. We're going on Saturday. We're going to be at Tatu City. We've been in Nairobi. We have done a number of places in Nairobi. And what we've done is that we've formed different partners. We've formed partnerships with different organizations, corporates, government, and also individuals who support us on this day for us to be able to have an awareness day. So it's not actually a tree planting or tree growing day. It's an awareness day for us to create the awareness that for us to be able to achieve the government's 10% cover. But on our side, we are saying we want to achieve 40%. For us to achieve between that 10 and 40% and also be able to achieve the president's appeal for 10 to 15 billion trees, we have to look for a formula. And for us, we found the formula of planting your age would be one of the formulas that can be able to assist us. Because, for instance, take an example of your home.
Yes.
In your house, you could have a parent. The average age of 5 members of the house could be 20. So 5 would be 100 trees. And if every year 100 trees are planted in your homestead, then we'll be able to get the multiplier effect. Also about companies. If you look at how many people have bank accounts in banks, for instance, the bank holders could be in millions or 100,000s. If every bank holder planted his age, multiply that to the bank, then a bank can be able to say, I have this kind of natural tree planting footing in a particular area. Same with also manufacturing. We have manufacturing companies that also can come through and say, we have 50 lines, and each line, for every line, we are going to plant a tree for every line we produce, and every worker in that line also plants his age. So if we had that multiplier effect of planting our age, I'm sure with another 5-10 years, we can be able to achieve a lot of trees in this country. Because one thing about growing growing trees during your planting age, with the initiative, is that one thing is that people never forget their birthdays.
Yes.
Anything else people would forget. You can ask him, when did you go to school? He can't remember. Yeah. But you ask him his birthday, he will give you the date.
Most likely ladies.
And most likely.
Yes.
Ladies will also refuse to tell you how many years, but for them, through their chama groups, they can be able just to plant the age, go around their families and plant the ages round during celebrations of their birthdays, even anniversaries of weddings. So those memorable days can be able to be associated to planting trees, because people spend a lot on those parties, but if they just turned it around and planted trees, it will make a difference. Even for a child, when a child is born, if you look at children of the age of 3, 4, they're all already understanding. And one thing you need to understand, if your child understands that I planted 4 trees, the child will protect anyone trying to cut that tree. And will grow knowing that this tree is as good as my puppy at home, or as good as my... Because when you look at how attached children get with animals, it's the same way we like also children as they grow to get attached to trees. So that, and this, we form a movement that from a childhood or from a younghood, people then understand that tree cutting is illegal and people should not cut trees, because the less trees we cut, the more cover we have, and the more cover we have, the more the environment, and hence a good and healthy country.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the most interesting bit is planting your age. You know, initially I was looking at planting your age, then now you've just broken it down to planting your age. Basically means every year you turn a year older, you plant as many trees as...
You could plant either an additional tree.
Yes.
But you can also
that
plant...
If you started.
If you started.
Initially, yes.
But if you can either add another tree every year, or you could plant just in the number of years you are, depending on the land you have. Some people would say, maybe I don't have land. But for me, what I feel is that once you have the idea done, there are many people who are ready to give even land for you to plant trees in their in their properties. Because what we are coming to is what we were talking earlier before the break, was about the carbon credits. There's a lot of move of what carbon credit would be and how do you benefit from carbon credit. And tree growing and tree planting is becoming an economic environment that people can be able. One is that when you're growing the trees, the question we always ask ourselves, even if today we said, let's go and plant 2 billion trees, the next question we need to ask ourselves, where are the seedlings of those 2 billion seedlings to be planted? Surprisingly, we may not be able to get even 100 million seeds. So what we also need to encourage is the youth to be able to take up nursery growing or seedling production as one of their productivities of job creation. Then from there, now move to the next stage, where now we're able to purchase those trees from the youth and plant them in a national activity to be able to increase our cover. So once you do that, then you're able to say then, the application of that then comes again to where the trees planted, or where are they growing, and are they protected? And if they're protected, then we can now comfortably wait for carbon credit reimbursement, which is now the next and final stage that is at the moment for us to be able to benefit from our tree growing.
Talking about carbon credit, you know, most people don't really understand what carbon credit means. They just have an idea, carbon credit, but they cannot really understand what it means.
Okay.
And how do you benefit from carbon credit?
Okay, I may not be an expert, but I have an understanding, which I think I can be able to make you understand what it could be. The developed countries are more in industrialization than they have time or opportunities to plant trees, because they're deforested. They're more deforested and more in industrialization. So they have reached out to other developing countries that still have space to plant trees on their behalf. And so the developed countries have put a kitty. That kitty is to compensate the developing countries or give them an incentive to plant trees on their behalf to be able to absorb the emission of gases. Because the emission of gases is what is creating a ozone layer, which is now bringing the change of climate change. Climate change at the moment, why you are seeing the erratic change in rainfalls and also seasons, is basically because of the ozone, the atmosphere, and the atmosphere that has been created around the clouds, which the ozone layer has brought in a lot of gases, and those gases are actually choking the sun and the clouds from actually dropping a natural season or natural weather. So that's what the West have done, or the developing countries, to have a kitty, which they are calling the carbon credit fund,
Yes.
which is going to be able to compensate those who are trying to support or have initiatives to be able to plant trees on behalf of the other industrialized countries.
Yes.
Now the only problem now, I think, that we are facing as a country is the policy of implementation. Because one of the policy of implementation is, even if you wanted to claim for carbon credits, you have to have data in terms of how many trees have you planted, or where are the trees, because you have to count them in terms of trees, and there's also in terms of the length, in terms of so many things, the cover it has taken over. So there's a calculation they are trying to bring in the formulas.
Yes.
But the formulas have to be adjusted to where have you planted these trees. So we've created also, through Plant Your Age, we've created an app. The app will be able to identify, if you plant a tree on your birthday, you go onto the app, you're able to identify where it is. And from there, then you're able to use that app also for you to go and reclaim your credit where you have planted trees.
Yes.
So that's what we're saying. So we're trying to make tree growing a bit formulated for you to be able to achieve a compensation when carbon credits start being rolled out in the country. So it's all about, from seed production to the growing of the trees, to the maintaining of the trees, and thereafter be able to benefit from carbon credit.
Yes. So it is a whole long process that needs patience.
Yes.
Interesting.
But it's also a very good process that can also make money. It's an income generation activity.
I've seen many corporate organizations really moving towards climate efforts of combating climate change right here in the country. And one of the issues you've just highlighted right there on your poster of Plant Your Age is basically how planting of trees and generally a habitable environment can affect your spiritual, psychological, and general well-being as a human being. How does that apply?
One thing that is very natural, and I think it's also very natural to every one of us.
Yes.
Due to urbanization, a lot of people prefer to be at the rural area when they want to relax.
Yes.
And the only thing that makes people go to the rural area to relax, or places that the suburbs, is mainly because of the peace you get around trees.
Yes.
Trees bring a lot of peace. One, you get good air in terms of the air we breathe, and also it gives you a good environment in terms of coolness. So I think all that put together would help in your spiritual thinking, will give you a good mental stability, and it will also give you a good thought process or mind relaxing process.
Yes.
If you look back at what happened during COVID, we were buying oxygen in thousands. It was very expensive to buy oxygen.
Yes.
And if only we planted, if only we understood the cost of what we costed the COVID oxygen purchase is equivalent, or is even more than what you need when you're planting trees. So the more we plant trees, the better for us, for our oxygen intake. Yeah.
Interesting. That is Joe Kithiaka, the chairman of Plant Your Age. Now, Joe, just before we wrap it up, we are talking about Plant Your Age Day. We would really want to understand if I'm interested in joining, or rather the movement that is specifically that day. I would really want to understand how I would tag along, and also how would I benefit?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. As I had mentioned earlier, on Saturday, the 14th of September, we are having our Plant Your Age annual day, awareness day, which we are celebrating at the Tatu City in Kiambu, which is on Thika Road.
Yes.
And I'm inviting every single person listening to me at this time or watching me to come and help us, or come and learn how we plant trees, and also to participate in the tree growing movement. How we'll benefit is that, one, you'll be part of this movement. Two, you learn how to participate or how to grow trees, because there are ways that trees are grown that if you don't grow them the right way, then they don't grow. They're just like children. You have to nurture the right way and get the right formula and be able to get. Thirdly, is also we'd like to appeal that for those who are coming to come and partner with us, because you could be a corporate that has always wanted to have a formula on how to plant the trees. Join us that day to come and learn how we'll be doing it, and also contact us through all our social media pages, which is Plant Your Age. You just go to Plant Your Age, you'll see all our social medias, that's how they appear. And you can be able to contact us and be able to ask us for an appointment. Yes. And thereafter we can be able to come and show you and partner with you on how to plant trees. And also lastly, one thing I would like to say is that back to reinforcement.
Yes.
5 years or 10 years ago, I remember the former president, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, gave a directive to government and said all parastatals, yes, on their 10% of social, corporate social responsibility, that 10% of it was going for environmental conservation. I would like if government could just reinforce that, because that is the kind of money that can be able to assist in planting more trees and growing more trees in this country.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, many thanks, Joe Kithiaka, the chairman of Plant Your Age, for that specific and well-done conversation on matters environmental conservation. Well, be sure I will be right there on Plant Your Age Day, which will be happening on 14th September at Tatu City from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. right here in the capital, Nairobi. Oh, that is Kiambu County. Yes, that is Kiambu County, where the Plant Your Age will basically be raising awareness on the importance of planting trees, and specifically on your birthday, rather those significant days in your life. My name is Sammy Adika. Many thanks for making sure, or rather for tuning in Newswatch tonight. It has been a wonderful conversation. I do hope you've taken a thing or two home. Do have a lovely night. Until tomorrow, goodbye.